What is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach about relationships, communication, parenting, and in this video we're going to be talking about ADHD. I am assuming that you maybe have found out that somebody you know has ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And you're wondering, what is this? How can I be prepared for it? What am I seeing? Is it true? And so in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you some of the characteristics of a person that has ADHD. So ADHD is super commonly diagnosed. You need to know that. And that's because some of the qualities of a person with ADHD are also qualities of just regular people sometimes. So people can be misdiagnosed. You need to know that. In fact, depending on the age of a child, sometimes they are easily misdiagnosed. So the younger a child is, the more common it is for a person to be misdiagnosed. So we need to think about like 7-year-old boys. 7-year-old boys are super active, they have a hard time paying attention, stuff like that. Well, they are oftentimes diagnosed with ADHD, sometimes maybe mistakenly so. I'm going to be going through a pretty large list of descriptions to hopefully give you a really full understanding of what ADHD is like. And at the end of this video, I have a surprise for you. I would like to share with you things that you can do to help the person with ADHD in your life, whether it's you or your children, have a better chance of having self-mastery or self-government. People with ADHD are oftentimes classified as people who don't reach their full potential because they have a hard time paying attention. So think of that though. That could be literally almost any small child. So we do need to be careful. So when you have ADHD, people are saying things and your brain is going somewhere. You're analyzing something else. Something has caught your attention, and because of that, you end up trapping yourself and sometimes not accomplishing what you want to academically or with some of your other goals because you seem to get sidetracked even when you didn't want to be. People with ADHD are oftentimes very self-focused, so they have a hard time getting out of the world of them and what they are thinking, what they are feeling. So people who have ADHD oftentimes interrupt other people. They have a hard time having patience and focusing in and listening to what other people have to say because their thoughts are going crazy inside their own heads, and they know they must be important because they're really finding their own ahas right now. And so they want to share those ahas with other people. People who have ADHD are not dumb. This is really important. In fact, oftentimes they're very, very smart. But what happens is they have a hard time knowing when to tell themselves to turn off thought and to listen, and then how to bring that thought back if they turned it off. When a small child has ADHD, they have a hard time waiting their turn. So they don't like waiting in lines. This gives them lots of frustration, and oftentimes if they see somebody else doing something fun, they'll just run over and insert themselves in the middle of it. Now, here's the deal. Almost any toddler or small child could do this. In fact, now that I think about it, adolescents do this a lot too. But that does not mean that they all have ADHD. So let's remember that. That's just something that commonly happens when a person is very self-focused and they aren't in the habit of waiting and being patient. Before I share more qualities about ADHD, click the subscribe link so that you can get more information on behaviors, communication, and self-government. Part of the term ADHD is the H, right? Hyperactivity. So people who have ADHD oftentimes are more hyper. They're fidgety. They sometimes make noises to seek attention. So do you know what attention seeking looks like? Lots of times people who truly have ADHD will do a lot of attention-seeking behaviors and they're not even fully aware that they are doing it. Now, anyone can do attention-seeking too, though. You see what I mean? Like a child could do it, a parent could do it, somebody who just wants to be the life of the party could do attention-seeking behaviors. That does not mean they have ADHD. This is just something that we often see with a person who does have ADHD. Another quality of a person who has ADHD is they ignore danger. And they often are quite impulsive. They lack some of that impulse control that could keep them safe. So they may do something like maybe they're walking on a wall and they fall down, they scrape themselves, they get hurt. For some reason, they go right back a little later to walking on the wall and possibly having the same mistake occur. So they aren't very cautious, and it seems like that they don't learn from some of those mistakes oftentimes. So this can be difficult for them because it can cause bodily harm. Another quality of people with ADHD is procrastination, or forgetting things, like forgetting their schedule and what types of things they want to do that day. Now, again, have you ever procrastinated? I mean, I have. Have you ever forgot something on your schedule? I have. I could think I have ADHD, but like at the end of the day, I could just have a normal person moment where I'm overwhelmed, I've got a lot going on. So we need to be really careful with all of these qualities, not to just label somebody with ADHD, because really a person would have to have pretty much all of these qualities a large period of the time to know that they truly have ADHD, and not just stress, overwhelm, or lack of connection. Another thing that people with ADHD oftentimes have, and I'm saying oftentimes here, I should probably say sometimes. Oftentimes might even be a little much, because really it's 30 to 40%. 30 to 40% of people with ADHD say that they also feel anxious, so they have anxiety. Now, right now, I don't even know the percentage of people who say they have anxiety, but it's a lot. It's going up all the time, and I do think there are multiple reasons for that. This isn't the video for me to discuss that, but it's definitely becoming its own kind of epidemic, really. And I know it's something that people are really dealing with and on a real deep level. But people with ADHD experience anxiety oftentimes because they have a fear of forgetting stuff. So if you truly have ADHD, you're afraid of forgetting the stuff on your schedule. And so what happens is you develop stress. You overthink it again and again, just so that you don't forget. And that's usually the type of anxiety that a person would experience if they have ADHD. This one you might not have thought of, but many people who have ADHD say that they have a lack of appetite. They're just not very hungry. Well, if you think of it, if you're stressing, if you have anxiety, if you worry because you're forgetting things, or you're constantly beating yourself up because you procrastinated something and now you're worried about it again, then yeah, you might not eat. In fact, I would think that also you could probably overeat just because you're worried too. Additionally, people with ADHD can struggle with anger control problems. So they have outbursts, and this is usually a result of, again, frustration. Where does the frustration come from? Well, let's see. If I get distracted and I have a hard time paying attention, so then I forgot to do something, which means I was procrastinating, I didn't work out my schedule right, that means my anxiety and stress level is going up, well then, what happens? I lose it. I snap at people. I start thinking of people as objects, especially because I'm really concerned with what's going on inside my own head. So when a person has ADHD, it leads to all of these things that they can deal with just because they're having a struggle with paying attention. ADHD can seem like a catch-all. It's so complex, and there's so many different things that a person could experience. If a person truly has ADHD, there is hope. And you know what? If they just have some of these symptoms, there is hope too. So I promised you a bonus, remember? Well, here's the bonus. The bonus is self-government. When a person learns self-government, then they can master some of the lack of attention, or they can master keeping to that schedule a little bit better. There are skills and principles of self-government that help a person stay focused. For years, I took in treatment children, foster children, and many of them had ADHD, as well as other things like OCDs, because those go together actually. Oftentimes a person with ADHD also has OCDs. What that really means is a lot of stress, okay? So those types of children, people who also had RAD, ODD, all kinds of things, came to my home for treatment. So what did I do for them? Because we were highly successful in our home. In fact, because of that, people have asked me to speak about parenting and family communication and self-government all over the world. So what we did is we taught them how to give themselves no answers, how to instruct themselves. We taught them how to hold themselves accountable, how to plan for success, how to pre-teach themselves and correct themselves when things went wrong. We taught them how to be calm so that they wouldn't let the stress overtake them. I want to share some of this with you, but this has already gone on long enough. There are so many videos on this channel that you could look at to help find additional help with self-government. But right now, I would like to give you a free gift. So in the description below this video, there is a link to something called the Calm Parenting Toolkit. I believe it's the top link in that description. If you click on that link to the Calm Parenting Toolkit, then you will get my Calm Parenting Toolkit, which is a course for free. This is the perfect start to you learning self-government and for your child to learn self-government too if you happen to be a parent of a child who is struggling with ADHD. ADHD is something you can live with. ADHD is something you can manage. So don't let yourself get overly concerned. Just develop the skills, get the tools that you need for success, and your life will be much more optimistic than it may seem at this time when you're a little concerned about what this diagnosis might mean.